Hey everybody, and welcome back to Dunn's Garage. On this episode, we are doing things a little bit different. So, at the time of recording, it is the second week of November in 2025, and we are taking our Dart and a few other cars on the last road trip of the season. So, the areas that we're going to, we like to call Sugar Creek, but in general, it's kind of just the Ohio Dutch Amish Valley, and it mostly consists of Dover, Sugar Creek, Berlin, and Millersburg, Ohio, respectively. So, why are we doing this? In general, we try to go down here at least once a year, and it typically happens around the holidays. We're doing it this time right before Thanksgiving in order to buy a few things to make food for the holiday. But why are we driving a 1973 Dodge Dart down there? And it's to kind of prove a point. I mean, we've driven all over the state, and that's kind of been documented on our channel a fair amount. But we're doing it now in November after it snowed at least twice in Northeast Ohio because it's just a car. You see on all the YouTube channels and Motor Trend and all that, the way that they show these cars off as just something that you can get in and drive. And to be honest, it's been kind of odd with daily driving the car as much as we have, the amount of just awe that people have that you put miles on it. So this is the last drive of the season, and that's really because it snows in Northeast Ohio, and while it is just a car, it's not the most easily replaced car. So shortly after this, we're going to end up packing the car up for winter storage, and we wanted to give it one last stretch of the leg. So why do we choose to go to this part of the world to do a bit of shopping? Considering this is going to end up being, with the route that we take, 40-45 miles down, and at least that coming back. Now, we did choose to take a bit of an interesting drive through this in order to avoid going through the center of Summit County, Ohio, which contains Akron, and we're not driving a car like this off the highway down the middle of East Akron. It's not smart. Don't do it. I love Summit County to a degree, and I have a special relationship with Akron, but don't drive cool cars through it. Trust me, it goes poorly. But we go down to this area because there's a lot of older style grocery stores and farms and butchers and cheesemakers and winemakers that, to a degree, we've gotten a bit attached to over the years because we've been going down to this area at least my entire lifetime. My parents have been going even longer, but because it's entertaining for a bit, and also because the food's just a bit better at some of these places. So here's a bit of a map of Ohio's Amish country, and while it's not an extensive map, there is a whole other side to it. It's going to kind of highlight a lot of the areas that we're going to. We're going to start out in Sugar Creek and kind of make our way around. But you can also see on the far end of it is Loudonville, Ohio, a place that we have been several times, one of which was for their 4th of July car show. And I will try to remember to put the link to that video in the description, but it's a great time. Now, in a moment, you're going to hear me, as we're driving through some areas in Summit County, call something Talmadge Circle. It is not Talmadge Circle. That is a completely different location. What I was referring to is the Six Ways intersection in what used to be kind of the dominant center of Talmadge, but is not anymore. But with that, I will lead into the other part of the video. This is Talmadge Circle. That's the new Sheetz that they just built. Sheetz in particular parts of the world is like a fundamentalist religion. That's the Six Corners little area, and that is the Giannino's Pizza that my dad used to get a pizza from every single day when he worked at Summit Racing. It's probably not healthy, but there used to be a picture of him on the wall there. And it was like the local place that all the guys at Summit Racing went to. And this is the main drag in front of Summit Racing. Well, Summit Racing's international headquarters in Talmadge, Ohio. So that from the outside is Summit's primary location. Off to the left there is the retail store. The white section in front of us is where they have sales and all of their other headquarters stuff. And then the biggest warehouse that they have is behind it. They also do a fair amount of production stuff in the area for some of their partner producers. But yeah, that is the biggest auto parts store in certainly Ohio, and I think it might be certainly on the list for the biggest auto parts stores in the country. Yeah, so the next thing we're coming up on is Mars Auto Salvage, or what used to be Mars Auto Salvage, actually. Changed names a couple times. Used to be just a really good junkyard, but what it is now is a bit of a junkyard, and what they specialize in is crate engines. They do a lot of stuff like LS engines, Hemis, all of that, pulled out of cars and running on pallets. So, this is Uniontown. We used to live down here. That is the interesting little grocery store that we used to go to. I will admit, I was 4 years old the last time I lived down here, so I'm not the most well-versed in where things are these days. But, yeah, nice little town that's kind of in the country, but not quite. So with that, we continued just making up miles, and while we were in the chase car being a 13 or 14 Volkswagen Jetta, I can't remember nor tell the difference, things went pretty well. The Dart at this point in time has been thoroughly tested on some long road trips and really only ever had the one issue with fuel pump. It's got some other little finicky things, but nothing I would actually call an issue that keeps you from driving it. But it was nice, and is always nice to explore a lot of these little back towns in Ohio. In general, Northeast Ohio tends to be where all the population is, and there's a lot of these old towns dotted just everywhere. Basically anywhere that you can get on the highway and drive to somewhere else to be employed, but not have it be too far. You'll see nice little towns and places where people call home. And while we missed the leaves by like a week, it's still not too bad driving around this time of year. And eventually we got far enough south and west that we started seeing buggies and other evidence that we were getting close to Amish country. And it was just an enjoyable drive. The Dart is a car that is best suited probably for cruising. It is an actual muscle car, and the 340 probably would make it good at some other things, but really, A-bodies work really nice as just a get in and cruise car. They're big enough to go put several people in and go grocery shopping, and small enough to not be a behemoth and still fit in your garage. And with that, we get to our first location, being Heine's Cheese Chalet. I don't exactly know how to pronounce that last word. I'm not French, and I have no interest in actually looking it up. But what they do here is they buy local milk and make cheese happen. And they make a wide variety of cheese happen. And we've been coming here for years, and every time we say it's going there to buy cheese ends that are inexpensive, and then we walk out with a basket full of $100 worth of cheese. But it's worth it because it's a very interesting place. And here's some video inside where you can kind of see that there's these big rows that you get to walk through and pick out cheese. They have samples everywhere. It got bad for a while during COVID when they kind of clamped down on everything, but it's pretty nice now. If you are coming through the area or going to visit Amish country in general in Ohio, I would advise it as one of the must-stop areas, as it is probably the most authentic place still. While they do produce cheese on a somewhat an industrial level here, you can still go back and do little self-guided tours of their whole facility and see everything, how they do it, and they do it in a more artisan way and more authentic way. I think that's the best way I can put it. And they go to a lot of effort with coming up with different kinds of cheese. They do all the standard ones, but now they're doing smoked cheeses and all kinds of stuff. And they go to a lot of effort to keep it to locally sourced products. And I appreciate that, being somebody who lives in Northeast Ohio. And as you get to kind of the rest of the store, it does have a bit of, I don't know how to put it, I guess Amish slop, country food store slop. Um, and that's kind of the weakness of a lot of these parts of the world where they're selling preserve jars and all kinds of things that are just produced at an industrial level at somewhere like Troyer Foods. Not to diss Troyer Foods particularly, but it is what it is. But we go there for the cheese, and that is it. And with that, we kind of make our way out, and you can see from the back here that it is quite the facility. They do produce cheese on industrial level and ship it everywhere, which is good because you can go to a variety of places and buy it. And that is the goal of small businesses and farms, to become larger ones and employ more people. And with that, we'll move on to our next location. As you can see, while I did complain a bit about how some of the foods and other things for sale in a lot of these places are going to be a bit fake, we are driving through vast amount of actual farmland, and all of these places go to an effort to use locally sourced produce and other products. And that's down to a number of reasons. A lot of them are invested in this larger community, but it also gets cheaper to not have to move food around. With that being said, it's always just nice to drive through this part of the world because the farm fields are beautiful and it gives you a different perspective that you don't necessarily get if you live in a city or a suburb, and gives you a better understanding of how the world works and where your food comes from, which is always a bit of an enjoyment. With that, we made our way to our next stop, being Troyer's Country Market in Millersburg, Ohio. It's a couple miles down the road from kind of the center of things in Berlin, but it's a nice little place to stop. It's a very odd grocery store. It's got a wide variety of things, not just Amish goods. They have a deli, local produce, all kinds of stuff. Pallets and pallets and pallets and pallets of deer corn this time of year, but that's to be expected in a part of the world where hunting is a big thing. As you can see here, we're kind of going through the front of it, which has a very large baked goods section, and I will admit the baked goods section here is far better than anywhere you're going to see in any kind of standard grocery store. But that's to be expected from Amish country, and it's even cheap compared to everywhere else, which you wouldn't expect in a touristy part of the world. And beyond that, there's just a wide variety of interesting things. Like there is a fully smoked turkey ready to be opened and warmed in your oven for Thanksgiving. That's something you see everywhere. And to be honest, people talk about how expensive food is at the moment. Most things down here were actually kind of cheap, certainly at least compared to where we live in Portage County, Ohio, and also a very interesting variety of fresh things that you don't normally see anywhere else in the world. Like here, you can grind your own peanut butter, and that goes a long ways. It's also a wide variety of spices and other things throughout the store. In addition to things like the peanut butter, they also have fresh honey, and as you can see in the picture behind me, fresh cut pineapples in a part of the world that I don't think you could grow pineapples ever. But with that, I'm going to kind of get into some pictures that I stole off the market's website just to showcase. They have a whole little butchery section where they do fresh beef jerky, bacon, the whole lot, as well as a full deli and a little cafe area for people to stop on their way by. One thing I will point out is we weren't the only crazy person on the roads that day, as there was somebody driving around to the store in what appeared to be a late MGB. It had the front plastic bumpers on it, so you know it's a late model one. And if we're crazy for driving around a Dodge from the early 70s, he's definitely crazy for driving around a British car, just in general. But with that, we kind of made our way out and back on the road to our next stop. One thing that was very interesting to do on this trip was drive the Dart on some back roads that we don't normally get to hit. And while Northeast Ohio isn't exactly mountainous, it has its fair number of hills and valleys to create some very interesting little driving roads. Nothing compared to some of the other places I've lived in the world. I did live in kind of the middle of Appalachia in Pennsylvania, and those are mountains and a completely different animal. Wouldn't want to drive the Dart through it, didn't like driving my Jeep through it, but that's a whole schizophrenic rant for another day. um, But with that, you can kind of see we're driving to lunch at this point, and they're just some fun roads to drive on. It would be more fun if we had taken my Dakota, but I have not fixed the blower motor in it, so we wouldn't have had heat, and that would not have been fun. I will point out one thing with driving around out in this part of the world is just the vast number of people on either horses, horse and buggies, or bicycles. And electric bicycles have become kind of the thing out in this area, and it makes it harder to drive around because you're always afraid you're going to hit somebody, particularly on these bendy roads. And I'm not sure of the reason behind the electric bicycles in a part of the world where you're not supposed to be able to use electricity, but that's for somebody else. And with that, we're kind of approaching our stop for lunch. There are a whole bunch of Amish restaurants out in this part of the world. We're a bit tired of them. Several of them have become very tourist trap like, but that's a whole nother video about me ranting about how touristy certain parts of the world that I love have come to. And you can kind of see in the background that a lot of this area has kind of been filled with new homes that are very expensive, and that's a whole nother thing with different population groups moving out to these areas. But with that, we're approaching a golf course that has a Mexican restaurant in it called Habaneros, Tacos, and Margaritas, and I find it very interesting that it is at a golf course that has a Canadian flag on it and somehow in America. But it is a very good restaurant. Northeast Ohio is completely covered in very authentic Mexican restaurants, which I find very interesting, especially when some of my dad's relatives come up from Laredo, Texas. My great uncle was born in Mexico, and they get somewhat upset that they can buy authentic Mexican food in Northeast Ohio, but not at home. But that's a problem for people in Texas. With that, here's us arriving at the destination that we went to after lunch, and that is Sugar Valley Meats. It is, in my opinion, one of the best butcher shops in Northeast Ohio, and to be honest, one of the better ones that I've been to in general. They have a very wide variety of local foods from farms dotted all over the region. Here's a photo of kind of the main drag area. As you can see, there's a wide variety of mounted animal heads all over, and that's kind of a interesting thing in and of itself. But when you go into this place, it's wild because I can remember the smell vividly from being a child up until now. It smells like smoked and cured meat in a very particular clinical way, which is kind of odd. But it's a very interesting place, and they have a lot of good food, and it's different in a way. A lot of people I know don't go to actual proper butcher shops. They just go to the grocery store and they have a butcher. And while there's nothing wrong with that, there's just something wrong with it. Everybody should go to butchers because you can get what you actually want and you can watch them do it, and you don't just get something prepackaged that's been sitting there in cellophane for hours on end. You get a better product. And with that, I'm going to kind of show you some of the things around in the counters. So one unfortunate thing about going right before Thanksgiving is that it tends to be picked a little clean, but being a full-service butcher, they can usually get things out of the back if they don't have them up front. They have a wide variety of, as I said earlier, cured meats. Their ham is very good, especially if you are not the biggest fan of sickly sweet ham. They also do a variety of other smoked meats like brisket and bacon and all kinds of things like that. And it's also a great place to be able to buy things like beef tallow if you want to fry foods in some kind of oil that wasn't originally designed for machinery. And they really have anything you could want on the counters, and they sell up to full cows provided you give them enough time. They also have a great selection of dog bones if you're like us and you have a million different dogs, and they have a wide variety of smokehouse foods, kibasi, sausage, hot dogs, bacon, edged everything, and it's all great. But with that, we got our meager haul from there, stopped for about 30 minutes to talk to somebody in the parking lot who wanted to talk about the car. He talked about having a 340 six-pack 4-speed Duster when he was younger and how that made it so he had to walk everywhere for a year after the state took his license. But It was an interesting story nonetheless, and with that, we kind of got along our way. Our next stop was Miller's Gun Supply in Sugar Creek, Ohio. While it is a gun store, and because of that we can't film inside, they also sell a wide variety of hunting equipment, camping equipment, cooking, and particularly one of my favorite being smoking equipment. We go there all the time because they just have a variety of interesting stuff, and they have quite serious grill setups at, for the time, a very reasonable price. But as I said, we can't really film in there. They have their concerns over security, which are warranted. But if you're in the area and you are so inclined, it's worth a stop. Our next stop was Schrock's Heritage Village and a couple of little stores there. This is one of the places that's actually located in Berlin, Ohio. There used to be a couple other things here, like some antique stores that actually had a pretty decent variety, but now those have become churches. And this is a part of the trip that it used to be a very good place to go to and a very authentic place to go to, and it's kind of become a bit tourist trappy. The leather store and shoe store is pretty good as far as finding variety, and to be honest, a lot of the stuff there isn't dramatically over internet prices. The pet store is definitely a tourist trappy thing where they try to get people to buy what appear to be puppy mill dogs, but it's for each their own, I suppose. Following that, we were on the road once again, and this time we were on our way to what would be our final destination. And I would kind of like to talk before we get to there. So, the vast majority of people that are watching this are not subscribed. So, if you aren't, you should go and subscribe. It helps us get better analytics for the YouTube channel and this video in general. More people see it, and that's good for everyone. Um, but in addition, I just wanted to say, anybody that's made it to this point, if you would shoot us a comment and say if you like seeing this type of content on the channel. It's obviously a bit different from what we normally do and a bit less car related. And kind of got inspired to do this by watching some of David Freiberger's stuff, and it was just what we were doing in the car at the time, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to try to make a video out of it. Obviously, I have learned quite a bit sitting here in the editing process of things to do better next time, but if you like it, shoot us a comment and tell us what we did good, what we could do better, and what you want to see next time. With that, we arrive at our final destination, being Layman's Country Store. This is a very interesting store. It kind of bridges the gap between the things that are a bit gimmicky and an actual older style country store. We come here for a lot of different things. They have a wide variety of cooking appliances that you'll see later, as well as very out of the norm things for a lot of people in the modern world. You can buy gas and wood powered furnaces, stoves, all kinds of things that are kind of going away in the modern world that you might want to at least see before they're gone. With that, I'll kind of show you what's going on inside. And Layman's is quite a big brand at this point. As you can see, their facility is quite large, and it is one of the largest country stores in the area. But kind of going into some of the stuff inside, they have a lot of interesting stuff hanging on the walls, and the whole beginning of it's kind of the gimmicky part where there's keychains and little knickknacks and actually a really wide variety of old style sodas, anything from cream sodas to a just the biggest variety of root beer I've ever seen in my life, which is actually fairly interesting. And as we kind of continue going through, it's gimmicky with all the gift stuff, but it makes up for it with having some actual charm. They do have quite a good book section, I will admit. With that, I'll kind of show off the part that we usually spend the most time in, being the cooking section. They have a very wide variety of modern and non-modern cooking appliances. As you can see, giant spoons are not something you normally see outside of the parts of the world where you might have a 2.5 foot tall stock pot like we do. And I did buy one because we're going into Thanksgiving where we're going to cook a bunch of turkeys and have to make turkey stock. But beyond that, they have just every little kitchen appliance you could think of. And while unfortunately the majority of it isn't made in the United States anymore, it is relatively high quality stuff. We've never had an issue with anything we've gotten there, and some of it we've used quite thoroughly. Going beyond that, as you can see, they sell a variety of craft materials. They have a big seasonal section, and eventually we got to another interesting thing that's there, being they have a very wide variety of Carhartt clothing at prices that actually beat a lot of the online stuff that we've dealt with in the past. And I know Carhartt as a brand is kind of entered its own cultural standing, but it's still decent enough stuff. Beyond that, they have the ubiquitous section of knickknack toys and preserves that all Amish places have. And it's a bit gimmicky, but people come here for a reason. Part of that is what they're looking for. Beyond that, they have a decent section of camping equipment. And unfortunately, I didn't get a video of the section where they have all the wood fire appliances, but they are there, and they cost a fortune, and I don't know why. But somebody in the comments might. But with that, we kind of made our way out and started heading our way towards home. Unfortunately, with this time of year, even though it was light out when we left, it would not be that way for very long. And once again, as we went along our way, the car made it with no issues. While there's always the worry when you're driving around a 50-odd-year-old car that anything can go wrong at any time, but to be honest, with our experience on modern cars, which you will see a video, at least one video on in the near future, that can happen with modern cars too. A lot of them aren't being built so good, and we've had that bite us in the recent years. But it's just better this way. It's more fun to go out and see the world in a car that has a bit of the culture from that world along with it, and a bit of soul that a lot of these modern cars just don't have. And with that, there is really nothing more to say. We had a decent trip and everything went well. I will point out that we were able to drive the car even in the dark. So everybody that keeps their car locked up in a garage never sees the light of day. It's really not that bad. They're just cars. But I just kind of like anybody that got it this far to thank you for watching the video all the way through. It really means a lot to us. And if you could, give us a like and a subscribe. It really goes a long way to helping promote the videos. And we'll see you in the next one.